Alrighty, so today we're gonna have a look at a best of 3 series of Zerg versus Protoss that apparently is a bit of a banger. I'm excited to find out exactly what ended up going down, as first off, in the top left-hand corner of game number 1, we have none other than Su. One of my all-time personal favorites, although recently he hasn't really looked quite as powerful as he once used to. So I'm excited to see how well he does right here against one of the world's greatest Protosses. From the beautiful country of Europe, from the state of Germany, we're looking, of course, at ShoWTimE's main nexus. ShoWTimE, one of the best defensive Protoss players in the world, and because of that, I feel like this is going to be a bit of a tricky match for Su, mostly because Su very much so relies on his very swarmy approach. Usually, he seems to refuse playing late game, and even though I haven't really seen that many of his games lately, the last few times ever since he came back from the military, the last few times that I got to cast his games, he was still certainly not focused on playing the late game. He loves playing that very swarmy approach, make a lot of workers and try to overwhelm the opponent. So let's see how well it goes, because ShoWTimE is very good at defending against basically everything. This is Golden Aura, game number 1, which I think is actually a really good choice in particular for ShoWTimE, because this is not a map where you can very easily lose on like 3 bases, sometimes even 4. This base is pretty easy to protect. 4th base up here, also one that you can quite easily acquire. And as long as you have, well, at least most of your tracks covered, you should be okay to play the macro game. So I think it's probably ShoWTimE who decided to pick this map. Actually curious to see what the win-loss ratio is on this particular map so far. Golden Aura, Liquipedia. So for Protoss versus Zerg, it's about a 57% advantage for Protoss. Terran versus Zerg is about 50-50. Protoss versus Terran is about 51% in favor of Terran. But this is apparently best for Protoss in this particular matchup. Which probably explains why we haven't seen it all too much in this matchup as of late. Alrighty. So far, hedge block on the low ground. Su has decided to go for the 3rd base as his very first expansion. We will, of course, see him take that expansion here in the natural in just a moment. Stargate opener for ShoWTimE. Nothing all too surprising, although a lot of the players lately have been going for Glaive to Depths. I've even seen a bunch of Dark Templar play. I can't imagine ShoWTimE is not really somebody who's going to mix that in, because it requires you to play quite tricky StarCraft, and you have to... yeah, you have to really take some chances, and that's not really usually what ShoWTimE likes to do. So, I'm assuming this is going to be good old Oracles into good old Blink Stalker. The tried and true method for playing Protoss versus Zerg. Not really something that Zerg can very easily counter either. They can try, but it's quite difficult for them to actually get a... Yeah, if you decide to cut too many corners here as Zerg and you overdrawn or you skip unit production here for a bit, or you really delay your lair, you just kind of fall behind as well. It is technically possible, but it's quite difficult to pull off. Alrighty. Here come the skill checks. Okay, 2 drones. I don't love 2 drones, to be honest. I think this is much better when you also go in conjunction with an Oracle, for example. Yeah, but that one spawns right now. So that is one of those moments where maybe ShoWTimE assumed that Su was going to cut workers. Or that he was going to cut Zerglings, rather, in favor of workers. But ultimately, he just finds himself now a little bit behind. Because problem is, if you now want to take the 3rd Nexus, you need to keep that Oracle at home. So usually you want to have the Oracle on the other side of the map, but... once again, turns out the best defense right here for Su is the offense. He would really like to be aggressive here and have that Oracle activate the Pulsar Beam. But it's a good start right here for Su for sure. Making more links than you ordinarily would at that stage in the game, but he should be able to get away with it just fine. Alrighty. So far, 2 workers killed. Nothing to write home about yet for ShoWTimE. Only a Spore in the main base. Where's the queens? We have 5 queens. Brenda, Karen, Margaret, there's an Oracle. No, they don't care. Ah, they're kind of old, right? Maybe they're hard of hearing. They didn't care at all. Just standing around. Don't know what the hobbies of a queen are, but I guess they have like their knitting, whatever you call those things you knit with. They've got their knitting needles by default. All they need is the wool. Anyways, another queen apparently was just given birth to by the hatchery. We do have a bit of a cheeky Zergling attempt. Stalker is running low, and we are gonna get a full Ling run by. Really good start right here for Su. Getting much more value than he's supposed to out of these first groups of Lings. He will be forced to remake Zerglings as well to defend against the counterattack. Yeah, but I think he should be all right. He's gonna have about 20 Lings. Yeah, wouldn't mind seeing a few more. Zerglings once more going on the counteroffensive. Lara's gonna finish here in just a moment. Not in love with the queen positioning, by the way. I really feel like that's a little suboptimal. Yeah, and this is gonna be quite expensive. Load of drones are going down. In the meantime, Zerglings still on the other side of the map. Once more, they end up killing a Stalker. Fair enough. Okay. So 8 probes, 13 drones. I would imagine that does favor the Zerg, but apparently we're not done yet. Yeah. Oracle's in the meantime over in the natural of the Zerg player, dealing more damage, and he is going to be able to recall those back home. More Zerglings were produced, though. Interesting that Su actually just keeps on making links. He's been... Okay, now we've queued up a ton of workers, but he has not really been making that many drones, really just favoring Zergling production. But if you favor Zergling production and you deal damage on the other side of the map while taking damage at home, you still are not really in that great of a position. Yeah, 20 drones lost is way too much. Then again, losing 9 probes, most of which could have been prevented, I think, is also quite suboptimal right here for ShoWTimE. Okay. Blink is going to finish up in just a moment, and this is where the gateways are going to finish up as well in a moment for ShoWTimE. So he's going to go all the way up to 7. And he will be aiming for that 4th base here momentarily. Looks like an Oracle just fell inside of the main base too. So this is a bunch of sloppy mistakes for both players. Now we have a lot of Overlords prepared in advance. This would be a good Swarm Host game. I think Swarm Host in general, it's what the kids would call a very mid unit. They're certainly very mid, but yeah, they have their place. They have their place. So we have Swarm Hosts on the production tab right now. I think Swarm Hosts are good when the game has been going kind of right? Whenever you're playing a game and you're like, I'm kind of alive, but I'm also not really comfortable. That seems to be where Swarm Hosts are very powerful. And that's exactly what Su is doing here. Last time we saw him play Swarm Host, if I'm not mistaken, he decided to do it without any sort of Nidus, which is a bit weird to me. I'm actually trying to think if that was him or if that was another Zerg player. It was a Korean Zerg. I think it may have been Dark or Su. Usually whenever Dark plays Nidus, or whenever you play Swarm Host, he will also make a Nidus worm. Another Oracle, by the way, goes down here. I don't really love how ShoWTimE has been throwing away way more units than he needs to. Those 2 Oracles in particular, though. That first wave of Locust is terrifying. Storm is gonna finish up in about a half minute or so from now, but it's not finished yet. Okay, let's see. One of the most horrifying units in the entire game. Protoss players watching this, losing their minds. Oh, that is painful. Loses 2 Templar right before Psionic Storm. Look at those units dealing damage as well to the Nexus. You may think it was the Roaches and the Lynx for the most part, but no. Those Swarm Hosts really pack a punch, and that is about as good a first wave as you can hope for. And suddenly this turns into a bit of a disaster right here for our Protoss. What's usually a map that you can quite easily defend on is now turning into a map where he lost one of his pivotal bases. Ooh, hello. Hello. Oh, Queen's apparently with the transfusion. Yeah, Swarm Hosts are an interesting unit. Generally speaking, considered to be the worst Zerg unit in the game. If not the worst unit overall. I actually think... Oh, more Templar? Save him, please. I think the Tempest is the worst unit overall. Oh my lord, no. Nice target firing right there by Sue. Well, we have now seen more Templar going down than we have seen Sonic Storms, which is never a good ratio for Protoss. Yeah, and Sue is doing what Sue does best. He is the Swarm. Now, I always loved watching Sue games in particular. When I was trying really to improve quite a bit myself, I really liked Sue's playstyle because he never really plays spellcasters. And I suck at playing spellcasters. So I usually prefer playing something like this myself too. But it's certainly not as easily done as Sue is making it look right now. I mean, ShoWTimE usually does not skip a beat when it comes to playing defensive StarCraft, but he is absolutely being outclassed in this game so far. When it comes to defending these sort of pushes, you need to be so clean. Your execution has to be so tight. Even just 2 additional oracles actually makes life much easier. I mean, now the queens are here, but when the first waves came in, just 2 additional oracles really helps out. And since he lost those for free, yeah, he's finding himself in a tough situation. Love this follow-up, by the way, from Sue. Sue is going into a bunch of lurkers. So he did go for a hive. I'm assuming we're going to see those lurker upgrades fire up in a moment. Yeah. So Swarmos are a very supply-heavy unit. Once more, I think this base is going to get denied. There will be a moment where those Swarmos are not as useful anymore. Battery Overcharge is going to try and save it, but it's just going to delay the inevitable. Yep, and now the lurkers are here. And that's such an issue right here for ShoWTimE, because ShoWTimE is not in a situation to go Tempest or really anything. He doesn't even really have a good Immortal Archon-based army either, because he's been losing all those Templar. Lost an Archon too. Does he have any Immortals? Okay, yeah, he's got 2 of them in total, apparently. But that is not very good against somebody who's going mass lurker. I think any lost Swarmos will be replaced with lurker supply instead. Okay, ShoWTimE though, still valiantly holding on. He is aiming for about 100 army supply. He's currently sitting at 54, but he could just not get up there. Ultimately, it's Sue who wins game number 1. Next up, we find ourselves on the map site Delta. I have fast-forwarded through the first 2 minutes of the game because nothing happened. Well, units were made, workers were produced. Zerg got bullied a little bit because they couldn't take the natural expansion, but other than that, pretty normal. And once more, this is going to be a good old Stargate opener right here for ShoWTimE. So what exactly went wrong right there for ShoWTimE? Well, honestly, he just gave away a few too many units. It's a very delicate dance for Protoss to play defensively. Any unit you lose is going to make it harder. So he lost a whole lot of adepts. He did lose 2 oracles as well. Sure, he killed a bunch of drones, but he also ended up losing tons of probes at home. So yeah, those worker losses sort of even each other out, and then ultimately it's so difficult to hold any of those Zerg timings. Be it a Queen March, or in that particular case, well, I guess a Swarm Host play. It's very difficult for Protoss to properly defend. So let's see. Margin for error is tiny, as per usual. Likewise the case as well for Zerg though, when Protoss plays anything but an Oracle opener. If you make any mistake, for example, as Zerg early on, and you're going up against a Glaive Adept push, you're super screwed. Like, you can't really do much anymore. So there's a bunch of those moments in the game where, like, your literal solution is just to do the exact same thing, but better. That's actually one of the themes I've noticed over the years of doing a lot of coaching in SC2 and just also talking about the game a lot. A lot of people are like, okay, well, I didn't win the game. That must mean that I have to scrap my entire strategy and play something else that I've never done before, because this one time in this one game, it did not work. Honestly, as long as you follow at least a semblance of a build order that most pro gamers play, just doing the same thing but better is unironically the best thing you can do. It sounds very obvious. It's easy to blame the unit composition, but honestly, it's the execution usually that is the main problem. This is already a little bit better though for ShoWTimE. He's now showing up on the other side of the map. Not a lot of base defense here for Sue. There were Zerglings on the other side of the map as well, so Worker count is actually quite low here. Sub is actually doing that thing where he's just continuously making drones while he's under harassment. Look at that. So he did make some links, but he knows he's gonna be losing drones, so he's just replacing them before, well, he's even done defending. I always like that move, although it can be a little risky. What Zerglings were produced, though, are gonna be going across the map. Oracle movement feels really awkward to me today. Don't know what's going on there. They almost seem a little indecisive. Poor Oracles. Okay. Flying them over creep as well. I don't love this angle. Idle right there on the Oracles too. I feel like this is not ShoWTimE's best performance. Just making a couple of uncharacteristic mistakes, you know? Like, none of that is super significant, but just not being, you know, on point, not being snappy with your Oracle control is usually one of the signs that you're having a bit of an off day. At least he didn't lose them this time around. Yeah, like that was nothing, right? Like that was nothing. I mean, it was him taking a bunch of damage right down on the Oracles, but that's really about it. They gotta go back home. Not the end of the world, but it's not that confident movement that we like to see. Different unit composition here this time around for Su. So rather than going into Swarm Host play, it looks like we're going to go straight Hydraling Bane. Well, I'm saying Banes automatically. Kind of like Mutaling Bane, right? But I don't see Banes here on the production tab just yet. Just Hydraling? Very curious to see where this is gonna go. Is it just gonna be straight into Lurkers? Or are we literally just gonna play Hydraling? He hit a bit of a supply block, but it looks like he's done droning for now, so it's alright. Yeah, he's got 5 gas. So back in the early days, there were a bunch of timing attacks that Zerg would go for on 5 gases. That was mostly very popular when the Hydra upgrades were still merged together. So in the early days of StarCraft, the upgrades were separate like they are right now for the Hydra, so the speed and the ranged. Then they got merged together for some time, and now, well, they're once again separate because those attacks were very, very strong. Most of those big pushes were done off of 5 gas geysers. Anyways, it is going to be a Baneling Nest. So a bit of an old school way of playing right here for Su. Main difference, and why I don't love Hydraling Bane in the current meta, is the fact that +1 upgrades and +2 upgrades for the Zerg are not nearly as strong. Banelings with their most recent nerf really did, yeah, suffer in this matchup quite a bit. So in the past with +2 melee, you would one-shot probes. Banelings also had 5 additional hit points each, which really adds up. And becomes a very inefficient army. It always was an inefficient army, but you could sort of run it off of like 80-ish workers. I think if Su wants to play Hydraling Bane straight up, which seems to be the goal here, he's gonna need to have like at least 90 drones. Maybe even more than that, to be honest, but I'm not 100% sure because it's not that commonly played right now. Like, not straight up Hydraling Bane. He did skip the Roach Warren. I don't think he really has an intention of going Lurkers here just yet, but there is a Infestation Pit coming. You can't attack into this, can you? There's Storm. There's no way. Nah, great timing right here for ShoWTimE. Assuming he doesn't, okay, make too many mistakes. This base, though, is going to be quite vulnerable. Archons here soaking up the majority of the damage. That's fine. Some juicy storms going down, though. No Twilight Council or anything like that here for the... Or no charge, rather. Yeah, I was going to say, what in the world? We start up charge right now. I think ShoWTimE meant to have it. Because he doesn't, he ends up losing the base. Going Storm before charge is actually not meant to happen, I don't think. I don't think he meant to do that. Okay, so ultimately that actually makes his game quite good right here for Su. Interesting timing as well for him, though, to hit before Baneling speed is done. His Bailing Nest in general felt very late to me. Su is cutting a bunch of corners though with these threats. Early on, he really is not prepared against really any sort of Twilight Council based opener. Or any aggressive follow-up. Like, imagine if this was a charge lot follow-up from ShoWTimE. I think this is Su very much so playing into ShoWTimE's image as a macro Protoss. Do we have storms? We do. We're gonna need to see some storms. Hello? Oh, they don't have energy. Yeah, this guy just recently got enough of it. There we go. Zealot still without charge. Ay, 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 ay. Okay. Creep's threat, by the way, looking ridiculous right now for Su, who's really just poking a little bit here at the front. Now charge is done though, and that will usually make things a bit more complicated here for the Zerg. Yeah, I've asked pro gamers in the past, like, what do you wish commentators would highlight more that we currently don't? And one of the things that I've heard several guys talk about is day-to-day performance. Because there is a lot of variance in how well somebody performs based off of, well, external factors, right? Like, some days you're just feeling it, some days you aren't. Some days you don't sleep well, some days you're playing late, some days you're playing with more ping than the next. Some days you're caffeinated, some days you worked out. There's a lot of day-to-day variance. And even though I've seen ShoWTimE play some rock-solid macro games, I don't think this is necessarily one of those days. At least not yet. He's fine, though. He's alright. But I don't think he's feeling all too comfortable here. Okay. +2 coming up for the Zerg. Adrenal glands coming up, too. Normally, we'd be seeing at least a few Vipers. But like I said... Su doesn't love him. Which is exactly the reason why I do love Su. The man doesn't make spellcasters. Sometimes he does. I feel like as soon as Su... So Su very much so seems to always hamstring himself a little bit by not making spellcasters. Usually as soon as Su makes spellcasters, it's already a little too late. He makes them several minutes after he should have. So they're like desperation spellcasters. Prism in the meantime at the bottom of the map. Trying to be annoying. Yeah, the difficult part about this map, right, for Protoss here is that it's difficult for them to take another base from here. So there is, I guess, this expansion up there, but the Zerg creep spread is really quite close. Starting to get rid of some of those arms of creep right here at the bottom of the map now, but... Greater Spire coming up here for Su. Yeah, ShoWTimE needs another base here in another minute or so at latest. And that's going to be a difficult one to hold on to. Or maybe not necessarily the base, but... Well, if he takes the base at the 12 o'clock, then this one over here is going to be quite a complex one, although, okay. Su, generous as he is, just donated about 20 Banes. Good guy, Su. There's the fleet beacon, by the way, coming up on the production tab, too. These are traits that ShoWTimE will be quite happy with. I think you need to do a Zergling hit squad run by up north. Yeah. No? Alright. Well, I thought it was a good idea. +1 air weapons coming up for ShoWTimE. There's the Zergling run by. That Zergling run by really needs to kill that base. Su's basic strategy here is to contain Protoss on 4 bases and then win the game by bleeding them out over time. So, great council right there on that 5th. That is going to make it much harder for ShoWTimE to actually continue playing. Because he wants to start up a Skytools transition, but currently he can't really do that very easily because he's kind of broke. So yeah, he starts up 2 carriers. But it's going to be quite difficult to get a lot of value out of them. Okay. So the question is, will ShoWTimE be able to secure another expansion? I think if Su right-clicked it immediately, he would have actually been able to shut it down. Prism in the meantime. Ooh, don't love that. I mean, it's fine, but... Okay. This is dragging the entire Zerg army all the way back home. Lovely stuff. Okay, and it's giving ShoWTimE some time to breathe. So the fact that he's actually managed to get this base and some static defense right now, it's gonna be okay. He is forced to leave at least something on the left side of the map, but it looks like Su, yeah, assuming that this base is gonna be less protected than the one on the left, he's decided to go into this, and oh my god, the cost efficiency right there for Protoss is amazing. That was, yeah, Su just diving into the Protoss ball of units and not really killing anything. Archons can take like 20 plus Banelings. One-on-one. It's actually insane. Like, I'm not even exaggerating. You can do about 20 Banelings. A little more than that. For every single Archon. Now, obviously, Banes deal splash damage. But if you damage Archons and you don't actually kill them, obviously they're just gonna regen again. He's very Immortal heavy, though, which is an interesting choice. Immortals are pretty good against this army overall, but not against Brute Lords, and this is the first time that ShoWTimE sees Brutes. Interceptors are gonna be killed relatively quickly, too. Hydras, not great against carriers, but in small numbers, carriers are counterable like that. Most importantly for ShoWTimE, though, he got this base. And that allows him right now to max out. Okay. Still a very finicky fight. Yeah, he's just taking a bit of a beating. ShoWTimE wants to move forward in between these fights. He does have storms. Can we get some storms? Okay, decent storm over there. Banelings are rolling into Immortals, by the way. Which is slightly less cost inefficient, I guess, than these Archons, but still not a bad choice. Here's an aggressive link forward. I almost wonder if that's a little bit too aggressive. You never really know exactly when those reinforcements for the Zerg show up, but ShoWTimE right there, up with his back against the wall, does manage to stay alive. Suddenly, yeah, exactly, he's got just enough Stalkers to blink forward and snipe those Brutes. Suddenly he's able to strike back. Tempest production coming up. Natural expansion has been wide open, by the way, for a long while. Su giving his opponent the benefit of the doubt, but ShoWTimE apparently taking a page out of Hero's book. Actually, super annoying when you have Zerglings in your base right here, because, well, I mean, ShoWTimE is maxed out, so you can't even really warp in Zealots or anything to defend against, like, 20 links. If you have 20 links in your base right now, it actually can be a disaster. Okay. Another Nexus coming up. Impressive defensive play, by the way, from ShoWTimE here. Yeah, not loving like the first 5, maybe 6 minutes of the game so much. But the last 10 minutes have been really well done here. It's been tricky. He's forced to play from behind. But he is getting quite a bit of value. Now, it's a ground-based army, or an anti-ground-based army here on the left. I think a nice addition here for ShoWTimE to defend against all this Ling Bane heavy aggression is just to like park a Mama ship over here, or maybe in a, whatever base, right? Like one of his flanks can be mostly defended by the mothership. One of the cool moves you can do is activate the cloaking ability, which seems to repel those Baneling pushes quite nicely. Okay. Corruptor count, not that big. 14 Corruptors is decent, but not a ton. There's the Mama ship. Thank you for making me look good, ShoWTimE. Appreciate that. Thank you, man. Okay, and this is that little hit squad on the left side of the map that was supposed to be defending. Apparently they've had enough. No more defending for them. Okay. Yeah. No, I think you guys should carry that win back home. I agree. Alrighty, I think ShoWTimE is actually getting it done. Because right now, the only way that Zerg can properly play against the late game of Protoss, I mean, we're not quite there yet, as we do have another big swoop right here from Su, trying to see if we can get the jump on it, and this is actually a nicer attack than the previous ones. Those Brute Lords in the back are really putting in a lot of work. Okay, you know what? Hold up. He is kind of running out of money, though. He's not even maxed out anymore. Corruptor still up in the air. There is a Zealot counter, or not even a Zealot counter attack. That's that same hit squad of units, actually. Apparently, they smelled blood. They want to continue onwards. Mama! She's going to be spawning here in just a moment. Reinforcing Protoss units, trying to keep all of this alive. I think Mothership has to... Where are you going? No, you're going on the wrong... Oh my god. She's rallied onto the wrong side. Wait. Where are you going? Okay, we're gonna hang out over there. Fair enough. Dude, honestly, these Immortals and High Templar, though, they've been having a grand old time. So what I was trying to say earlier is that at this phase in the game, as Zerg, you really do need to switch to Spellcasters. Because otherwise this happens. You just start bleeding out. GG is cold. Okay, apparently we're just gonna refuse playing late game altogether. GG is cold. ShoWTimE wins game number 2. Alrighty. Final game in this best of 3 series. We find ourselves on Oceanborn. Good old Oceanborn. Definitely a map where Sue can get aggressive. Honestly, I think if ShoWTimE plays a clean early game, he's got this one in the bag. It's just not been particularly clean. Obviously, much easier said than done. You have to be very careful with your early game defense and the way you move around your units, but... I've seen ShoWTimE play exactly that type of game. About a gajillion times. Alright, once again gonna be a Stargate opener. First Adept going across. I'm assuming it's gonna be triple Oracle together with Adept, guys. Yeah, for creative build order development, the ShoWTimE games are never the most exciting. He'll basically do the same thing every single time. Couple lings here. Just trying to be annoying. It is gonna be triple Adept. It's a little funky. They know they're gonna be able to go into the main base regardless here, so they decide to poke away at those probes for just a moment. And Sue will note there basically is no real worry for him here early on. He's gonna have to make some lings. Yeah. That ain't it. Losing an Adept like that is actually quite annoying. Not the end of the world, but annoying to say the least. Especially since Sue didn't really make a ton of lings. Again, Oracle now has to stay at home to try and defend. And it's really just a momentum, you know, that really flips. If you make mistakes early on, suddenly you're no longer in control of the way that the game is going and you're just playing catch-up. So, third Nexus is going to be built, usually at about 345. Now we're talking 405. So where exactly has that money gone? Well, into more Adepts. About a 20-second delay, and nothing really to show for. Another gateway was also produced. Now additional gases are going to be coming up. Let's see if ShoWTimE can get something done right here with these oracles. He's heading on over towards the natural expansion, which is the third base of Sue. The third base that he made. I guess technically the second base that he made. Anyways, not really achieving all too much. Interesting way to put a creep tumor down. I guess he's planning on sending it down to the low ground. He's gonna need to get creep from the other side first, though. There's Blink together with the Forge coming up. I'm assuming it's gonna be Blink. Okay, well, these Adepts could be nice. Not really. No. Oh, we're already going back to mining? I don't know about that, buddy. Yeah, that seems a little ambitious. 5 drones for 4 Adepts. Again, I don't love it. We did see double lair there for just a moment, but Sue apparently caught it in time. Sue once more, skipping out the Roach Warren. Skipping out the Roach Warren, skipping out the Baneling Nest here, just going straight lings. I'm assuming it's gonna be straight into Hydras. Would be an opportunity here for ShoWTimE to potentially go for like a Zealot push, but he's going into good old Blink Stalkers. Okay. Let's see. +1. Oh, there is a Roach one. Would you look at that? Very strange timing on the Roach Warren. This Roach Warren timing doesn't really keep you safe against anything in particular. Okay. Yeah, I think it's just like a, okay, I would die if he decides to attack me right now, so I guess I'll make a Roach Warren type of Roach Warrens. I think that's what we're looking at. Hydra Den on the back of this. Once more into Quick Sonic Storm, it looks like, for ShoWTimE. Yeah, I think what ShoWTimE is playing is really good when everything goes really well. But when everything goes so-so, it's just, it just feels a little Now, it seems to me like you kind of need to rely a little on the Zerg making a mistake. And that can certainly happen. But you do lose a bit of that control when you play this predictably. Okay, you will see that it's a Roach Hydra transition. So actually just Roach Hydra straight up. Skipping the Baneling Nest this time around, at least for the time being. Just straight up Roach Hydra. Not sure how good Roach Hydra is when maxed out in 2024. Used to be the go-to unit composition for many, many years. We rarely see it these days, because it's pretty easy for Protoss to control. But obviously, if you're not paying attention, this can max out really rapidly. Yeah, if you blink twice, Su might just be maxed out, and it's really quite difficult for Protoss to still defend against that. He's gonna go for a 4th Nexus, going for the one all the way at the bottom of the map. Second Robo Facility coming up for ShoWTimE. Actually, no, it's the first Robo Facility. Correction. Only just now is when he goes for a Robo Facility. Ah, he decides to make 2 at once. That makes sense. Okay. Storm is going to be done within about a half minute, but maybe that's exactly the reason why Su decided to play this particular opener here instead. Yeah, Storm is scary. Those High Templar are pretending that they have Storm, but it's not done yet, and that means that the 4th Nexus gets cancelled. Hydras need to be a little cautious as well, though, because they don't have their speed upgrade yet. I don't love these passive Blink Stalker openers. Where you go blink and then you just kind of expand. I'm not in love with it. Okay, some big storms do end up going down. High Templar, pretty far forward. Battery Overcharge, though, is going to save the majority of them. And ultimately, their spells do allow the Protoss here to stay alive. Well, I say that. Charge is going to finish up after most of the Zealots have died. A lot of the Roaches have disappeared as well. The shield batteries and photon cannons are having a grand old time, though. Su just really trying to wipe out that army. And much like in the previous game, he's now trying to effectively create like a 3-base contain here on the Protoss. In the previous game, it was a 4-base contain. He wants to continue fighting. Lurker Dan coming up once again, together with a Hive. Yeah, very similar theme here again for Su. Okay. Su keeping an eye out on that base on the right as well. Making sure that he at the very least realizes if Protoss has already taken it. Hive about halfway done. Very difficult, by the way, for Protoss to counter Lurker-based armies when they're only on 3-base economy. Aggressive blink forward here into that army. I don't love it. One of the Immortals pretty far forward, but luckily the Sonic Storm there forced the Zerg army to back off. Okay. Immortal numbers are going up, though. They were pretty late onto the battlefield, but we have 2 of them being produced at once. ShoWTimE realizes that this is likely going to be a Lurker transition. He's going to go for the base over here now. This is a very difficult base to protect, though. If you have a bunch of Lurkers going down from this high ground, and they get in position before you're prepared, it's very tough. If Su has any say in the matter, though, he wants to see if he can shut this down right here, right now. These fights are very inefficient, though, for Su. He just knows that Protoss can't have a lot of money anymore at this point. Yeah. About 11 minutes into the game. Main base is gonna run very low. Natural expansion is not gonna be too far behind. So this fourth base actually becomes very do or die. Okay. Oracle trying to put up a little stasis ward. That one will be effective. So far, cost efficiency wise, I think this is actually very manageable for Su. Yeah, it's actually a little bit better than I thought it was going to be. His economy is really nothing to write home about, but now the lurkers are here, and those lurkers are scary. They have seismic spines, which is their ranged upgrade. ShoWTimE might want to consider just going full counterattack. Yeah, because this base is not going to happen. Problem is, now it turns into almost an all-in. No lurkers set up defensively though, but ShoWTimE is deep into the enemy territory. No observer, no prism. Templar pretty exposed. Su just trying to get this guy off his lawn right now. Okay, I think that's been achieved. I don't think you need to chase this too far, Su. Oh, he gets another immortal. Creep spread is looking pretty good, by the way. I didn't even catch that that creep tumor. Tried to use revelation. Slowly but surely, ShoWTimE is bleeding out. This base, it is a desperate one. It's playable still though, but ShoWTimE needs a big win in the next engagement. Leaving the front door wide open. Would love to see an attempted Zergling run by. If this was like a, I don't know, for example, a Serral playing or say a Raynor in particular. They would probably be testing for that this entire series long. Okay, and again, yeah, this is just the goal. Su just cares about killing that base. He doesn't want to give away all of his units in favor of that base. But lurkers make a counterattack for Protoss really quite difficult. Okay, so what can ShoWTimE do here? Well, his best chance is to go for one big ball. I think your best chance right here is to just make one large army of units, bring a prism, and go for a big attack. Try to see if you can bulldozer your way through the center. And it is very possible. But pushing into lurkers is tough. Pseudo with some really good creep spread. He's going to finish up +3 missile as well, which is going to make those lurkers even more terrifying. Okay, apparently ShoWTimE wants to push in, decides to disengage for a little bit, and that indecisiveness is going to cost him a bunch of shots. Su doesn't have to defend over here, by the way. Su figured he wanted to defend on the Protoss' end of the map. He could have been a little bit slower about that defense if he really wanted to, but ultimately, brilliantly played right here by the Zerg. He obtains the victory over ShoWTimE 2-1.